I like Liam Cohen from the day that they hired him, but now I have proof. I think the Jaguars made the correct decision for their leader. We'll discuss that today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is, in fact, your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. I've been a credentialed member of the local media here for about 2 decades. So I think I have my finger on the pulse of the team good enough to give you the analysis you need to get you through the day, especially days like today where the Jaguars are on bye. I'll tell you some of the things that we're going to discuss in just a second, but I like to let you know that wherever you get your podcast, you can tap in, whether you watch or listen, and we will be there. So will the everydayer. Shout out to them, the guys that listen to this show each and every day. If you're new, we'll welcome you in and give you a reason to come back and check out these episodes. Like today, the one that is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Move the Game Forward, Mazda Move and Be Moved. I'll let you know exactly what we're going to discuss today. It's all about the coach. But first, I want to let everyone know that we're also free, ad-free over on Amazon Music. Go to Amazon Music for ad-free availability of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. And we appreciate you joining us here wherever you get it. All right, confident in the identity of the team. The identity hasn't been really established yet, but I'm confident that they are headed in that direction because of communications between Cohen, transparency, and then the things that he's actually saying to the team. We'll get to that. Adapt and overcome. They got to figure out some things in the bye week. All is not over with. You listen to Jaguar Twitter, sometimes you think it is, but it's not. But Liam Cohen was the right choice, and that's where I want to start this thing. All right, right now, both the Bears and the Jaguars are 4-3. So there was this big conversation about Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen, right? And I'm not going to compare the two anymore, but I just wanted to mention that they're 4-3, but there's a lens that both fan bases are looking through. So that's a wash when it comes to the records, when it comes to who's doing better. It doesn't matter. I think the Bears got the guy that they needed, and I think the Jaguars got the guy that they needed. And that's where we're going to park this here today. We're going to talk about Liam Cohen. So much was made of get a play caller, get a play caller, get a play caller. Y'all know the play calling arguments and discussions that we've had. And I have said repeatedly that coaches call plays 3 hours a week for 17 weeks. And that's not including playoffs. You're on offense about half the time. So for about 90 minutes a week, you're calling plays. For about 90 hours a week, you're doing a whole bunch of other stuff that makes you the head coach of a football team. I'm not discounting how important it is for a team to hire an offensive play caller from a standpoint of continuity. I get it. When you have a defensive coach, you don't have continuity on offense. I've often argued that you could, and Seattle is one of those teams that they have a defensive coach, and they have an identity, and they're winning, and their offense is probably going to look the way it looks right now. Go back to the Lions, the Detroit Lions. He's not a play calling head coach. Their team looks an awful lot like the team that they've had for the last 2 or 3 years that have been wrecking shop around the National Football League. We get caught up sometimes in that. And I know a perfect example to use would be Houston, how they're struggling offensively, trying to find an identity. So I don't think that's because of play calling, even though they fired a play caller last year. They might fire the one that they have this year. I think the culture and identity of a football team is built with being in line with the GM because he's the one that has to go shopping for the groceries. So I think more than having that functional head coach to be doing some things, because there's some people that say, okay, how can he be doing the other stuff when he's so busy sitting there dialing it up and trying to find offense? There's some people that believe that. I think what you have to do is be a leader, and you have to have alignment. And the GM has to understand exactly what the coach needs. The coach has to have the confidence that the GM gives him what he needs, that there's no space and misunderstanding and a miscommunication with them. And the coach then has to turn around and make sure that he's in line with his staff, that things are being taught the way he wants them to be taught, as far as the messaging, not just the message, but how that message is being given out, that they have one voice. Then that has to be conveyed to the players. So there's a lot of communication that has to happen top to bottom. And the better that communication is, you're going to get a better result, right? And even a little bit with what is said in the media. And the reason why that's important is not because a media person is going to have any input to how the game goes. But media people like myself, we will say and write things that the coaches say. You can think players don't see it all you want to. So that has to be consistent, and hopefully the media does their part. Consistent, especially when they go back and ask players about what coaches have said. So the better the message, the tighter the message, the more clear the message, the more clear the communication, the less, unless somebody just wants to be dirty and nasty, the less you're going to have a whole bunch of BS and misunderstanding put into that. So to a small degree, media does have something to do with it in terms of how the communication is going back and forth. And then if the player does hear something that they're not supposed to hear, they know that the bigger message is what they've heard from their coaches and all of that stuff. But it all plays into it. That's part of being a leader of men. You're the glue guy that sticks everything together. Liam Coen is the conduit between management, coaches, players, fans. He's the person that is the spokesman for the team. He is unequivocally the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars, not James Gladstone, not Tony Baselli. And I think that's by design. And I think it would be counterintuitive to be anything but that. So because of that, I'm telling you, I believe so far, so good with Liam Coen. I'm not even on a wait and see basis. I'm going to just tell you right now, they picked the right person for this job unless he changes. I don't think he's going to change. So I know the easy thing to do is to say, well, he learned that under McVay. I think he learned it under Mr. Cohen, his pops, a longtime coach. There's stories about Liam being 6 years old, hanging in coach's office around his dad. And I think a lot of times we don't tap into, we take the easiest thing that we see and we want to attach our, like the dude's like 40 something years old. He's probably spent 5 or 6 years around Coach McVay. And I'm not saying that doesn't have a tremendous impact on him and the way that he moves, but I think it gets deeper than that. I think he has played quarterback. He has watched communication. He has been coached himself, probably been coached his entire life on a lot of things that can help him be the head coach. And you're seeing that with the access that you're getting on Jaguars.com. Like even after a loss, you're seeing the transparency with players. I'm going to show you some examples or give you some examples. I'm not going to play those examples of why I believe what he's trying to do is going to work. And it might not be the most popular thing to talk about right now, especially after a couple of losses where the offense has struggled. But I believe eventually it's going to work for him here in Jacksonville. And this is just my personal opinion and my feelings. We'll discuss that here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, I know my man Saquon Barkley hasn't been running the ball the way that everybody thinks, but you can't ever count out the Eagles because they're so talented. At any moment, they can blow out somebody. So watch out for thinking that these trends are going to continue. And FanDuel gives you all of the pregame information you'll need to make sure that you can win you some money. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get yourself started. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with systems designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling provides and removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software has created. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonNFL. That's rippling.com/lockedonNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we're moving along here on a Friday. Shout out to the Everydayers for joining us here. It's your team every day. We appreciate you making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. Talking about Liam Cohen. The Jaguars have some things that they need to adapt to and overcome. They got to overcome the drops. They have to overcome the pre-snap penalties. They have to overcome hustling backwards a little bit, like forgetting who they are in order to try to take advantage of weaknesses from the other team. You can't start forgetting your strengths. And then they just got to get over the fact that, look, sometimes things aren't going to go the way. Sometimes the ball beats you, right? And they got to learn to move on to the next play. They can't have these lulls in these games where things just continue to be bad over and over and over again. And then they have to adapt to what they think they are, what they're trying to do, and who they're going to be. And I think you see a sign of that with Liam Cohen now vowing, hey, we're just going to put the best 11 on the field. They're allowed to try to win games while they figure out who they are. They have said in the preseason they don't know what it's going to look like, but they've also indicated that no matter what system you come from, whether it's the Rams or getting guys from the Vikings, or you have to at some point not necessarily worry about your pedigree and doing things the way other people do it. You have to do it your own way. And it's going to look like your thing. Everybody that leaves McVay doesn't look like the Rams. Like Minnesota doesn't look like the Rams. It's similar, right? But you have to have an identity and have your own thing. We went through that with Gus Bradley in the defense, and Otto and Leo. Y'all remember that? And everybody's like, you got the former mayor used to call it the 12th man. And I'm like, no, that's their thing, man. Let that thing go and be what it is. Gus Bradley tried forever to find people that were just like, they kept trying to find a single high safety, didn't work. Everybody ain't Earl Thomas. They kept trying to find this big box safety like they did with Jonathan Cyprien. Everybody ain't Cam Chancellor. So it's just like, you have to have your own thing. You can learn and pick and choose. That's why I went back beyond Sean McVay. And y'all have to realize Liam Cohen has coached and played for other people. All right. He's going to have a different sense of the things that he wants to do. And one of those things is they have this Travis Hunter situation where that is something that the reason why you have to have your own way of doing things, because what you have with Travis Hunter is something that you haven't had. You don't have any NFL things to learn from. There's no precedent set for dudes like that, right? So, and I'm not just talking about the play calling aspect of it. Like, I'll give you an example. There are people that say, why is he the F receiver? Wouldn't it have been easier for just making the X receiver and put him outside like he was at Colorado? This ain't Colorado, dude. That's college. There's this thing that you adapt to when you get to the league that has nothing to do. Well, for a lot of people, the physical stuff you do, and I'm sure even Travis, who's a great athlete, is now adapting to the fact that everybody he plays against is a great athlete. That's an adjustment. But it's not going to change who he is, because he's just going to figure like, okay, well, I'm going to get mine too. But the part of this that people don't get when they keep saying what Liam is doing right or wrong when it comes to Travis is, this ain't about where he lines up. This ain't about making it. It's so many people that want instant success. They go, well, you should have just lined him up here so he could have instant success. Okay, just line him up outside where he hasn't, and he doesn't know anything else. You're also forgetting that, and it's easy to forget how good Brian Thomas Jr. was as a rookie because he's been so bad as a second-year player. But when they drafted Travis at the time, they drafted him knowing they had Brian Thomas Jr., who, based on his rookie year, was an ex-receiver. And I think people watch football and think that it's what they thought it was when they were kids or playing John Madden, where all receivers are just receivers. They're not. Everyone has something different that they need to do based on size, speed, skill set, what they actually do best, what their superpower is. They didn't draft him to be the X. It's just what it is. All right. This isn't about someone using somebody incorrectly. This isn't about someone onboarding someone incorrectly, because you have to understand that the fact that this was going to be something that was new means there was no precedence to even call it incorrect or correct. It's only a learning process that, unfortunately for everyone involved that is in the building, they're going to be scrutinized every single minute by a boatload of people that aren't there, that aren't privy to the conversations of, well, how do you get him onboarded correctly if he's splitting things in two different rooms? They've been super transparent, even back in early in the preseason, when they said they may have spent a little bit too much time with him away from the defense because he was a little bit behind on stuff. So they said, we're not going to go that many days without letting him go over there. All of this is new territory. So on one hand, people applaud them for doing something that's new, for listening to a kid and saying, okay, son, this is what you want to do. Let's see if you do it, if you can do it on this level, by then taking on an unprecedented path to getting it done. But now everybody's a genius in saying, well, they should do this and they should do that. They should do that. I'm on record saying he can roll out of bed and play corner. They ought to play him there and then work him in at receiver. That's not what they did. I ain't got no problem with it. But what they did because if you listen to Cohen, Cohen says he was ready to go as a corner. He needed most of his development at wide receiver. So that's why he spent so much time over there. So I was actually right in my assessment of him. But just because they decided to use that bit of information, not coming from me, but coming from themselves, that we absolutely agree with, to apply it differently, to actually say, you know what, we're not going to take that production on defense right now because we got guys that can do it. Whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what they chose to do. So we're going to actually put him over here. And now it's not just him. It's everyone learning a new offense. It's Brian Thomas Jr. having a slump. It's balls being dropped. It's the offensive line being banged up right at the time you're playing a couple of good teams that can really pressure the quarterback. So when I say adapt and overcome, one, you overcome it by improving your play, whether you're Trevor, whether you're BTJ, the offensive line, and you adapt based on, well, at some point we're going to see who we really are. And that'll lead to the identity part that we'll talk about in segment 3. But because these things are seen in real time, everyone seems to have an answer. And sometimes instead of talking about what it is, we end up going down these branches and we end up going down these rabbit holes of disagreeing with the way somebody decides to do something when we're not privy to the reasons why they did it. We're not privy to the conversations. We're not privy to what they're trying to do. So when I sit on this podcast every single day and I try my best to explain it to you, I'm not an advocate for anyone. What I'm an advocate for is the truth and what is going on, and try to explain it to you as best as I could so you know what you're looking at. And sometimes I don't even know what it is, and maybe have to take an educated guess and use deductive reason as to why things happen. We all got to breathe a little bit. And just because we come on here sometimes and say things that people disagree with, even probably them, it doesn't mean that we're haters. The identity part of it and overcoming has to happen. They weren't going to fix this thing in 1 year. They just needed to get it going in the right direction. And I think at 4-3 after 7 games, I'm going to get on that in just a second too. There are a lot of people that sit there and go, we'd have took that at the start of the year. And that's why I say don't worry about what happened at the start of the year. Base it on what you see and what they're doing right now. And that's what we will do here on Locked On Jaguars in the third segment and tell you why I think I have a lot of confidence in them building their identity. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Mazda. This episode is for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. If y'all didn't see Brian Burns last week in a game full of defensive players, Brian Burns is the real deal. Brian Burns, they drafted another pass rusher. They drafted 2 pass rushers with top 5 picks. Brian Burns might be the player of the year in the NFC right now on defense if the Giants can win some games because he is just like Mazda. He makes things move. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, make sure you move and be moved, man. They got everything that you want. The crossovers are absolutely great. Mazda is the way right now. Those cars remind me of top-tier athletes. They make things happen and they make things move. Confidence. That's what I have in the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that a lot of that confidence is because of optimism. Optimism in how the Jaguars were able to win games even though things weren't pretty. That's why I started going with the term gritty, because gritty, it wasn't, sometimes being gritty ain't pretty. Matter of fact, gritty ain't pretty until you can be gritty and win all the time, and then it becomes a thing of beauty. I remember when Nolan Richardson back in the day was the coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks basketball team. And Billy Packer, the late, great Billy Packer, used to be on TV and he used to be killing Nolan Richardson about how the teams played, because Billy was more of a fan of Duke and North Carolina. They played pretty, like computer programs. And then this term came called organized chaos. Nolan Richardson won a national championship doing organized chaos. He knew what his team was. He knew who they were. He knew they could play a certain way. And while it looked chaotic from the outside, it was very, very orchestrated and organized, because that's the landscape and that is the terrain where he wanted to play. I don't think the Jaguars have quite gotten there yet. But what I do know is this. I know if things get gritty and ugly, they'll be all right and they're not going to shy away from it. I know that they're going to be like, all right, cool. You know, you take a pig to the mud and he's used to the mud. He's right at home. He's like, where do I jump in? And the Jaguar, I ain't calling them pigs. I'm not calling them pigs. But what I am telling you is adapting to your surroundings and being able to overcome it eventually leads to an identity. And I think some of the behind the scenes stuff that you see from Cohen when he says we need to clean stuff up, there was one thing in particular that I got caught, and it showed me the what I call a cave experience. And what that is self-accountability. He was talking about something that should have happened yesterday when I watched the behind the scenes access, and he talked about something. A rookie named LaQuint Allen says, I should have done this, coach. I should have done that. He says, LaQuint, and I'm paraphrasing now, he says, I appreciate you saying that. And you're right. But it's not your fault. It's on me. Because, yeah, you probably could have done that a little bit better, but I can do better because I shouldn't have put you in that position, and this was a call that I should not have made. He even mentioned where he had talked to Trevor, where Trevor could have done something, but yeah, that's not the reason this didn't work. Just because you didn't properly have or didn't fully grasp the contingency part of what you could have done doesn't escape the fact that I put you in a position where you had to do it. And man, I almost lost my mind, because that tells me more than anything, nah, dog, it ain't one thing that's the problem. It's us. So a lot of times, and I bet you the play that they were talking about has been debated over and over again on social media, and all folks want to do is point to the part of the play that doesn't work. And it doesn't work because the person that they have their fangs out for didn't do one thing. But it's never one thing. I started a firestorm when I talked about Trevor Lawrence. I didn't blame him for everything. I just talked about what his personal responsibility was to get better and improve in year 5. I still believe that. But more than one thing, people say 2 things. Now, 4 or 5 things can be true. LaQuint Allen was right. He could have done something, but that wasn't the reason it failed. Because Trevor didn't do something wasn't the reason it failed. You see, that's where we have to get away from pointing out problems and looking for solutions. And when Coach Cohen says, I told Trevor, yep, you're right, we could have done something, but I shouldn't have put you in that position. Yep, LaQuint, you're right, but I shouldn't have put you in that position. It's on me. And those guys thought it was on them. So if we admit we can all do better and we actually go out and do it, well, that's about personal responsibility and accountability. So it means that it's not a singular issue that caused the problem, but that also doesn't mean that the person like Trevor or LaQuint Allen can't say, no, I gotta be better. Because when I point out that they have to be better, the first thing I get is people going, that ain't the problem. You need to do this. And how many times have I said that you don't sit here just because someone says he has to be better? That's not saying that everyone else doesn't have to be better. But you're talking about a rookie coach, a rookie running back, and I'm talking about a dude in his 5th year. I'm not picking on Trevor, but what I am telling you is I like the fact that Trevor took responsibility for his part. Do 5 podcasts a week when there's not a game and 6 when there is a game. I pointed out something about Trevor, and then the very next day I pointed out something about Brian Thomas Jr. in the offensive line. And then the next day after that, I pointed something out about Liam Cohen. So when they do it in a clip that lasts for 3 or 4 minutes, they're actually doing what I sit here and do all week and point out one thing at a time. I'm not going to come on here and give you a buffet every single day. That's why we have that little, you see that thing right there? If you're watching, we have things that we're going to discuss. That doesn't omit the other things that are going on. Just for clarity, I want everybody to understand. And it doesn't mean we have all the answers, but I'm paid to give my opinion based on what I see about where we are, not about what my expectations were about coming into the year, about them being 4-3. About them being 4-3, and yeah, for the fan base, it does feel good to want more. See, when 4-3 starts turning into something that fuels your appetite, as opposed to 4-3 being, well, it's better than where we used to be. Who has the problem? I don't have a problem. This is what we got to do. How do you raise it when you're just happy being what you weren't before? If your goal is to lose 50 pounds and you lose 25, congratulations. But you ain't there yet. And those next 25 are harder to lose than those first 25. So this is the hard part. Sometimes I say things that will rile you up because it's not the things that is on your mind. Just wait. We'll get to it. And I'm glad that they're showing this access because this is one of the reasons I believe Liam Cohen gets it. I absolutely believe that he gets it. It's not going to be just one thing. It's going to be all of these things, slowly but surely fixing itself to the point where we have accountability from players, from coaches, and it starts with him. And for that, I think he is a leader of men. And I think the Jacksonville Jaguars absolutely made the right decision because this city has not had, and I will go historic here, this city has not had a whole bunch to be cheering about. And little small victories matter. But you also have to understand those little small victories is not what we're here for. We're here for the main victory, the one where you end up with a Lombardi trophy. And we're walking to that together. And I think Liam Cohen right now is the right guy for the job. I hope y'all think I'm the right guy for this job because y'all join me here every single day on Locked On Jaguars, but you can also join me on Locked On NFL, the barbershop. Comes on 2 o'clock Monday through Friday, but it's the second of 2 shows. Tyler Rowland has the first one. Madman wakes you up like a double shot of espresso with all of the biggest stories from overnight, and I'll slide in the barbershop and give it to you with the help of local experts to keep our finger on the pulse of the league around the National Football League. All right, enjoy the bye week. No show this weekend. Obviously, there is no game on Sunday, so we'll see you Monday. We'll see you Monday as we prepare for the Jaguars to get it together and go out to Vegas. This has been a good 30 minutes. I'm glad you joined me because we don't take your time for granted here on Locked On Jaguars. Thank you.